Hello. As you are all aware, my upcoming videos are going to be a part of a long video series I am creating. So before watching this video, I highly suggest you go and watch my last video on the Ancient Kingdom, as you will need it to fully understand the points I'm going to make in this video. Today I'm going to be talking about the purpose and design of the ancient weapons. There is a lot of speculation around the ancient weapons and their purpose. To give you my ultimate idea on what I think these weapons are, some of what I'm about to say may be initially hard to swallow, but I promise it will all come together toward the end of this video. The three ancient weapons, Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus, are all considered to be unimaginably powerful and exist as major threats to the world government. We have been told this fact multiple times throughout the story. Before we get into what they are, I want to challenge the potential misconception that these ancient devices are weapons. For the purposes of this video, I will continue calling them weapons, but keep in mind this label may not be entirely correct. What I am referring to is this panel. The world government constantly refers to information and tools utilized by the ancient Great Kingdom as being dangerous and posing a massive threat to the world. Most of the information the world government feeds people is riddled with deception or scare tactics. For example, the world government constantly refers to any force opposing it as being evil or threatening, to scare the population into rallying against their enemies, which include many influential pirates and scholars. This begs the question, if the world government is telling people that the ancient weapons pose a massive threat to the world itself, wouldn't that mean the ancient weapons might not actually be all that threatening? For example, Luffy is always referred to as evil by the Marines and government, despite helping so many people. In other words, the ancient weapons might have not been designed as weapons to begin with. While they can be used as weapons of mass destruction, this does not mean that they were created with the sole purpose of killing things in mind. If the world government is convincing everyone that these are weapons that could destroy the planet, then maybe they are just trying to mislead everyone and keep them from figuring out the original purpose. Of course, this is not to say that they cannot serve as weapons. We already know from Franky that the weapons are made to be incredibly powerful, enough to pose a threat to the world if in the wrong hands. However, it is also stated that the original designer of the weapons wanted to counteract the destructive power of the weapon by making blueprints to a potential replica. This would imply that perhaps the use of this weapon was purely for defensive purposes, or even another purpose altogether. But what could this purpose be? I believe we do have a few hints laid out throughout the story. To discover the purpose of the ancient weapons, I want to cover the three weapons in detail to fully understand their designs and intentions. First, the Pluton was said to be a powerful warship capable of mass destruction. It was originally constructed by the Great Kingdom in Water 7 and was given the ability to destroy entire islands. It was stated that the original weapon can only be reawakened with the help of Nico Robin, presumably through her ability to understand the poneglyphs. The current location of the Pluton is rumored to be somewhere in Alabasta. Additionally, the blueprints were given to Franky and later destroyed by him to prevent the government from ever being able to build it for themselves. The name Pluton is the Roman version of Hades, and considering all ancient weapons bear the names of gods, this weapon could be named after the god of the underworld. Pluton's name could be attributed to its ability to cause mass destruction, or the fact that it was buried underground and is currently lying dormant in Alabasta. Perhaps its ability to sink islands in flames can be in reference to the ruler of the underworld, Hades. Next is Poseidon. It was revealed that Fishman Island possesses the power of Poseidon through the inherited ability of the mermaid princess. This weapon has the power to sink islands, much like the Pluton, through control of the Sea Kings. Additionally, Poseidon and the Noah seem to go together in being designed to fulfill some form of plan mentioned by King Neptune. The purpose of this plan is not entirely clear, but it involved using the power of the Sea Kings to carry all of Fishman Island up to the surface with the Noah. This seems to parallel the story of Noah's Ark saving the life on Earth from a flood unleashed by God. Much like the Pluton, perhaps the purpose of Poseidon was also to counteract another ancient weapon being used. Additionally, this is another time we have seen a different purpose for an ancient weapon that isn't purely destruction being brought up. The name Poseidon refers to the god of the sea and earthquakes in Greek mythology, which does properly represent the threat of this weapon. Lastly, the most mysterious weapon currently is the Uranus. It is completely unknown what this weapon can do or what its purpose is, though there are quite a few hints that may reveal its nature. It is stated that all three ancient weapons have the power to control the world. Furthermore, since they are named after gods relating to their nature, this could tell us even more about this weapon. Uranus was a Greco-Roman deity that ruled the sky and heavens, and was the father of the Titans and the first Olympian gods. This implies it could very well be a weapon used in the sky, as Uranus ruled the sky. Additionally, we can probably figure that Uranus is the most powerful ancient weapon as it is named after the father of many gods and titans. Before we make any conclusions about these weapons, I want to dive a bit deeper into these weapons based on hints riddled throughout the story. The Pluton's blueprints were destroyed by Franky, as far as we know. There still exists the possibility that Franky made a copy of these blueprints and keeps them hidden somewhere. However, I don't believe this is necessary, since Franky has already memorized the blueprints. Or at least I believe it's heavily suggested. This is made pretty clear by the design of the Thousand Sunny. The Thousand Sunny has been shown to be one of the most destructive, advanced, and sturdy ships in the series. It has the power to cause massive destruction with its Gowon cannon. It is also one of the few ships in the series that can fly with its coup de burst. Designing weapons has always been Franky's specialty, after all. After reading the Pluton's blueprints, there is no way he didn't take inspiration from it when designing the Thousand Sunny, especially seeing as though the blueprints were entrusted to him by Tom, someone he cared about more than anything. Although the Thousand Sunny may be a mostly original design, Franky is most likely using the parts of the blueprints he internalized to make the Thousand Sunny into an ultimate battleship. Making a ship that surpasses the Pluton would also be an amazing feat, and would also partially fulfill his dream of designing a powerful ship. It could also be considered symbolic that the Thousand Sunny was built on Water 7, as the Pluton was also constructed by the shipwrights in Water 7 during the Void Century. So even if this might all be true, what does it mean? If the Thousand Sunny has any similarities to the Pluton's blueprints, it would reveal a lot about the original design of the Pluton. The Pluton may have had a similar beam to the Gowon cannon that could wipe out islands, though far more powerful. Additionally, the propulsion device that creates the coup de burst is an interesting design choice to add to the Sunny. The only place we have seen a propulsion device like the one on the Sunny would be from a rocket ship. If this is any clue of the true nature and design of the original Pluton, this may suggest that it was not purely a naval ship. If its propulsion device were powerful enough, it could have acted as a rocket ship or spacecraft. In case you did not watch my last video on the Ancient Kingdoms, space travel has been mentioned and shown in One Piece before. In the Enel cover story, we see space travel as being very real and rather simple to execute. With only a propeller and electricity, Enel could reach the moon without a whole lot of trouble. And on the moon, we see several ancient diagrams depicting mysterious devices of this technologically advanced civilization on the moon. These depicted devices all could easily represent the ancient weapons. This is not a new idea or anything, as it has been covered in many different theories before, but it goes something like this. Above where the cave in the moon is drawn, we see a strange floating device in the air. Seeing it float up in the sky and heavens above everything else, this could be the Uranus. To the bottom right, we see what appears to be sea kings in the ocean, which clearly represents the Poseidon. And lastly, to the bottom left, we see a strange shape descending with the people on the moon. Now, could this be the Pluton? The shape is a bit strange, but it could fit the bill. If the Pluton could be used for space travel, it would make perfect sense that Franky modeled the propulsion device on the Sunny off the design of the Pluton. Furthermore, this would suggest that the Thousand Sunny could also serve as a spaceship in the future to travel to the moon, like Enel did. What would be the purpose of traveling to the moon, though? Well, this is where things can get interesting. If the Uranus is named after the god of the sky and is represented by the shape drawn above the moon, it might be a weapon that exists in space. And if it is anything like the Poseidon and Pluton, it would have the power to wipe out islands, but from the sky. You can imagine how a space weapon would be incredibly terrifying in the One Piece world, thus why the Gorosei want to make sure no one else finds out about its existence. If the Straw Hats eventually needed to reach this weapon for any reason, the Thousand Sunny acting as a spacecraft would help them reach it. Keeping the ancient weapons away from the hands of evil, such as the world government, may require the Straw Hats having the possession of all three ancient weapons. We already know Shirahoshi is the ally of Luffy, meaning the Straw Hats have possession of Poseidon in a way. And if the Straw Hats were to make a weapon on par with the Pluton, they would have access to 2 out of the 3 weapons. With control of Uranus, the Straw Hats would have all 3 weapons to take on the world government and navy. This would solve the issue of the Straw Hats not having the manpower to take on the entire navy and world government, since even Whitebeard failed to put much of a dent in their forces with his own fleet. Furthermore, they might be able to use the Poseidon to carry on the legacy of Joy Boy and complete the plan he made with the original Poseidon, or Mermaid Princess. Whatever this plan may be, the world government seems terrified of the 3 weapons and plan of the Great Kingdom and Joy Boy. In fact, I believe the purpose of Uranus is the most important to understand. In my last video, I spoke about the potential existence of a sunken island in the center of the Tarai current. I also spoke about the strange hole in Enies Lobby. I believe there is some indication that Enies Lobby was almost sunk by Uranus. The clues become quite apparent when you start to observe the geography of the island itself. Around it, you see a colossal void in the ocean surrounding the circumference of the island. Only 2 strips of land keep it from falling in. If this really was an island that was nearly sunken, then it would make sense that the blast came from the sky. Perhaps some barrier was used to deflect the attack from sinking the entire island, only hitting the outside of it instead. One other strange phenomenon in Enies Lobby that could suggest that Uranus is above it is the fact that it is always daytime on the island. It is even referred to as the nightless island. How could this be? Well, if Uranus was used to nearly sink it, perhaps the weapon floats overhead in the heavens, constantly emitting light. Because Mary Joie is close to Enies Lobby, perhaps Uranus is also responsible for illuminating this region as well. We always see it basked in a holy light, almost like it is in heaven. Since Uranus is also related to the god of the heavens, perhaps this weapon also releases a radiance that covers Mary Joie and shines onto Enies Lobby. I would imagine that a mechanism on Uranus could act as a mirror that focuses reflected light and energy into a beam, like the Thousand Sunny's Gowon cannon, that shoots overhead onto islands to sink them. If the weapon emanates a strong light toward where it's directed, this shine could be what lights up Mary Joie, and if the mirror was directed at Enies Lobby last to fire off the beam, then perhaps that is also what keeps the island nightless and sunny at all times. The idea of Uranus existing above Mary Joie is also supported by Doflamingo's claim of a powerful national treasure existing there. The existence of this supposed treasure would shake the world to its core and would also give Doflamingo power over the world. This seems very similar to the description of an ancient weapon. One notable fact that Doflamingo mentions about the device is that it requires him having the immortal surgery from the Opi Opi no Mi performed in order to properly utilize. Does this imply using the weapon requires immortality? The idea is not so far-fetched when we think about the Gorosei. The Gorosei have been shown to exist without signs of aging at all. In the last 22 years, none of them have changed in appearance or aged at all. If they appeared to be elderly over 20 years ago and have not changed in the slightest since, then it could be assumed that either they have a very long lifespan or have some procedure akin to the immortality surgery Doflamingo wanted already active on them. Additionally, Imu also seems to be a very long-living figure, as he has a very old and huge straw hat in his possession, which is potentially the hat of an ancient figure that both Luffy and Roger descended from, meaning he would have likely ruled over the Gorosei and world government for centuries, sharing their long lifespans with them. This would also connect to their need to have Jewelry Bonnie. Since they sent an admiral after her, this would indicate that she is important to the world government. Perhaps this is due to her age-changing fruit being used to keep the Gorosei immortal. If this is true, then it would make sense that they can utilize Uranus, which apparently requires immortality to use. It would also align with Uranus being known as a heavenly weapon and existing in the skies. In other words, Mary Joie, which is ruled by the celestial dragons known as gods, might be the best place to access the weapon, and it would fit the theme of heaven, associated with Uranus. We also see the existence of the straw hat within Mary Joie. If this was the straw hat of a great descendant of Luffy, potentially Joy Boy or a member of the D family, this might be an indication that Mary Joie was a place once belonging to the Great Kingdom itself, which is now conquered by the world government. And this would mean that it was the perfect place for the Great Kingdom to access Uranus before they were defeated. Also, the fact that they have Joy Boy's straw hat tells us that they may have also stolen the weapon from him in the Great Kingdom. If Luffy is the descendant of the past king that wore the giant straw hat, this would also tie into Doflamingo's line about the throne wars. The Pirate King will be the true ruler of the world, will dominate the seas, and in turn have the power to defeat the world government. This was all mentioned early on when people described Roger's power and authority. Imu also seems to hold the power of the Gorosei and the means to erase or cleanse enemies of the world government. Having the power of the Navy and CP0 as well might already seem like enough, but the power to erase islands or fleets will make sense if he has control of the Uranus. It would also be a weapon to defend Mary Joie from invaders such as the Yonko. If Luffy has possession of Poseidon and Franky's version of the Pluton, he would then have the means to fight the world government and Gorosei and take the Uranus from them. Having the power to reach the heavens with the Thousand Sunny, the Straw Hats could then use the Uranus against Mary Joie to completely defeat the world government once and for all. The overall purpose of all three weapons in unison may still be hard to piece together. Perhaps it ties into the aforementioned plan that Joy Boy made in relation to Fishman Island. But if these weapons were all used to sink random islands, it would mean that the Great Kingdom was warmongering. However, Franky's quote about the Pluton's blueprints being a counter to the original indicates that once again the Great Kingdom feared the weapons weapons being used for pure evil and domination. Perhaps the world government stating that these devices are weapons are a means of covering up their own use of the Uranus and potential countermeasures. Along with the idea that the weapons are used as defensive tools in some scenarios, I would argue that the intention of Poseidon's power being used for helping people of Fishman Island and not actually destroying Island proves that the purpose of these weapons is not so black and white. While these weapons can be used for evil, maybe the purpose of them was not to hurt people at all. Perhaps they were designed to create the Great Kingdom's version of freedom and equality among people through the power and purpose of the weapon's functions in unison. I would like to delve deeper into this and how this all ties into the One Piece and Joy Boy's ultimate plan. However, I will need to cover that in the next video so that this one doesn't drag on forever. Be sure to leave your thoughts down below, and I will be sure to include a couple of them in the next video. For now, thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.